Hey, Brandi. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through like the pictures that we did the other night together, so you'll like have a copy of them. Hopefully this video is not too long, but I'm gonna upload it to YouTube so it can be kind of long because I'm not just gonna like text you the video. I'll just text you the link. Okay, so first of all, I'm just gonna crop. It kind of depends, but usually I like to start with the crop the way I want it so that I like have a good idea of exactly how it's gonna look. But you don't have to start with that. And then I always either start with temp or exposure. For this one, I'm just gonna bring the exposure up first so I can see their skin. And then I'm gonna warm them up just a hair. That looks good. I'm gonna add a little bit of contrast, and then I'm gonna bring my highlights all the way down to bring the sky back in. There's a lot of shadow and a lot of high contrast between the brights, so I'm gonna bring shadows up. I'm going to bring blacks down just a little, and I'm going to bring whites up a little. And then I'm going to go to masking, and I'm going to click on subject, and we're going to brighten up our subjects quite a bit. So I'm doing exposure, shadows up, whites up, and then blacks down to add that contrast that we need. And then I am going to bring my highlights down a little. I don't always bring highlights down on the subjects themselves because I don't want to mess with, like, I don't want to take away vibrancy in their skin, but because his shirt is so white, we are. And then remember how it didn't catch this little guy's face. So we're going to go to the mask, and we're going to go to the plus button and to the brush. I need to pull my pen out really quick. Okay. Should I just delete that mask? Oh, there we go. Okay, so plus, brush, and then I'm just going to come in nice and close and brush that mask onto his skin as well. So we've got it on there. Perfect. And I can't really tell. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. It didn't quite catch their whole bodies either. Like the mask is a little bit... It's not quite as bold on her, it looks like. It was just kind of like a half mask. And it will do that. It won't do like 100% on everything. It tries to be smart about it. So sometimes like it might go down to like half like this on this part or something like that. Like it's kind of weird like that. But anyway, that was like half float. So it was only doing like 50% of the mask on that part, in case you didn't quite catch what I was saying, because that's a little confusing. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to add another mask up here, and I'm going to select the background. You can see with my computer plugged in how quick it's moving with that little device I was telling you about. Okay, so very first thing, I'm going to go down to dehaze, and I'm going to pull that up quite a bit. And then I'm going to pull up my shadows, pull up my black, I'll pull my blacks down just a hair, and bring my highlights down, maybe bring up some contrast. Then I'm going to add one more mask. This is going to be my sky mask, and I'm going to bring the highlights down all the way, and then my dehaze up. And the dehaze, if I get it too high, starts to look like the colors start to look unrealistic. If that's the case, you can either desaturate it just a little bit, or you can like adjust these sliders so that like if it's got too much blue, you can take out the blue by going the other direction or something like that. But I think it looks fine the way it is. And then sometimes I'll bring in a little bit of white to brighten the clouds up a little, but I don't want to add like too much. It still is like giving me some clipped highlights there, so I'm not going to worry about it on this one, but you can if you want to do that. And then here is the before and after on that one. Let's see. I could add a little bit more dehaze to the overall image and like a little bit of vibrance, and maybe up my whites a smidge. Well, maybe not my whites, maybe my shadows up just a little if I want. Blacks down a little, just to add a little bit more contrast, but honestly, I'm pretty happy with that as it is. So there's that. And then to copy it to the next one, I'm just going to have this selected. I think you know how to do this. And then I'm pushing Control, and selecting the next one. And I could do this like, I could select well, if I click shift instead of control, I can select all of them, or I can just click control and select one. And then I go sync, and this stuff is going to be like my basic edits. If I want to include the crop, you click it there, and if you want to include the masks, you click here. And then I'll sync it, and you can see it's really fast with that little thing. Maybe not 3 seconds fast, but probably 10 seconds fast. And then I have this one done as well. This one, I feel like I could brighten it up a little more. So I'll just go through and like adjust my edits. But I want to make sure I'm seeing where this extra part was falling. So yeah, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I could slide it over so it's completely on. It looks like Sister didn't get any of that. And I can just continue to add on to that. Maybe they've changed this actually. Okay, so, oh no, it did work. It was just moving slow. So if I click back on that the plus brush, then I can continue to add on to that. So that's really nice. Okay, so I definitely like need to get her arm better. And then I want to make sure that I forgot to do this on the other one, but with the background, I want to take away the background. Oops, I don't know what I just did there. Minus brush. I want to take the background off of the areas where it didn't catch my subject, because that's part of what's messing with her color, is that all of the background settings are on her. So I need to erase that off. So there we go. I'm not going to really worry about her legs because it in the shadow like that, that's how it would really look. So okay, that is pretty much all I would do for like that second one. So it goes so fast when you can like add all of the settings from the previous photo onto the next one. It goes super quick. Okay, let's do this one. Let me reset this one because it's still set to where we edited it the other night. Okay, so I'm gonna fix my crop, and this one I'm just like watching that horizon line at the back of the lake here to make sure they're nice and straight. And then I kind of like, I might come in a little more so they're a little more centered. Okay, so maybe something like that. Okay, I'm not going to brighten this one up at all, and I'm going to wait to do temperature until I've got everything else kind of where I want it, because I feel like it's pretty close, like warmth-wise and brightness-wise. I don't really feel like I need to do either of those things, but I am going to increase my contrast. I'm going to bring my highlights down. I'm going to bring my shadows quite a ways up, and then my blacks down. And then I'll go ahead and select my subject. We're just going to do like basically the same thing we did on these flower ones, but I'm just going to brighten them up. They don't need to be as bright as they were in the flower ones because that's not how the eye would see it. Your eye, when you're looking at somebody who's backlit, is going to see those people darker. So something more like this makes a bit more sense. Probably don't need to brighten them quite as much. And I'll just keep like kind of messing with it until I've got it like where I feel good about it. So that's probably good about there. And then select the background. Again, I like to just start with that dehaze and just add a lot of color and dimension to the background. Oh, that's probably too much though. That probably looks good. Add a little color there. And I'll bring the highlights down a little more, maybe all the way probably actually. And then a little black back into that just to give it some dimension. And I'm actually going to maybe actually undo the blacks and bring down the shadows a little. Kind of I'm liking the softness of that a little bit better. Okay, and then let's grab the sky. I liked this sky because it was like kind of sunsetty. It had a lot of color in it. So you can bring up the color, bring the highlights all the way down, and bring my dehaze up. And then I'm going to just, the blue is looking a little fake up top, so I'm just going to take a little bit of the blue out. I still want blue, but I don't want quite that much. And I feel like this is reading a little green. So I'm also going to add just a little bit of magenta. Yeah, to kind of cancel out the green in the sky there. Perfect. Okay, now that I'm looking at the overall image, I feel like they're a little too bright. They don't quite fit. So I'm going to bring my shadows and my whites back down a little bit. And that's probably good. Maybe a little more black to them. A little more dimension. Yeah, but I think that looks pretty good. Oh, what I haven't been doing though is I always do scroll down to the bottom and then pull the luminance slider from the noise reduction up a bit. Usually I'll just kind of zoom into an area where there's shadow and then figure out where I need it. Do you see that little part right there? That is from my mask. Let me show you how to fix that. So if I hover over it, yeah. So it read all around him as part of the subject. So I'll click on that and do a minus brush. I'm going to make it a little smaller and zoom in a little closer. And then I'm just going to subtract that mask off of the background. I'll come back to the like really close up areas with like a little less opacity, so can't see it quite as much. I'll show you. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Sometimes I'll start rambling. So if I bring my flow down to like 60-ish, then it's not going to be quite so dramatic when I'm like erasing off of there. So it gives me a little bit more leeway if I like accidentally get on their skin or their arms or something. So that's how you'd fix that. It could be better done, clearly, but that's the basic idea. And then you can see before and after. Looks so good. Okay, and then this one we added like the sky overlay. And I'll show you how I did that one again. So all I did with this one, I think, to begin with, was basically the same edit as this one, except I made it a lot warmer. So I can start by warming it up quite a bit. That makes a lot of sense with the sun coming right into your lens, that it would be really warm. Brighten it up a little, add a little contrast, I don't think I brought the highlights down on this one because I wanted the sky to be like basically a clean canvas to add some overlays. And then I'm going to bring the shadows down just a little and the blacks down a little, and then boost my subjects a smidge. Yeah. So shadows up, whites up, blacks down just a little. That looks good. And then I'm going to select the background. And I'm just going to bring my shadows down a little, but the overall brightness up a little. Probably like that. I think that's probably good. And then I'll just kind of straighten everything up. And pick the crop I want. And then I'm going to pull it into Photoshop. 1 second. Okay. So now I'm in Photoshop, and you can't, I don't think with the way the screen is recording, I don't think it's letting you see the drop down menus, but I'm in Edit and then click on Sky Replacement, and it will pop up this little guy. And I think I mentioned it to you, but I get a lot of sky overlays. A few come preloaded, but you can also get them from like Etsy, and then you just load them yourself, you click on this and you add a folder or add an image. And I'm going to slide down to find one that matches the lighting. I think I ended up using that one last time. Let me just do a quick little peek. Make sure that's the one I want. Oh, maybe this one. Okay. And then I think I also did a sunburst overlay here to, because of all the sunflower there. Okay, so I pick my sky, I click out of this. Then the shift edge, if I bring it this way, it'll make it more defined. And it doesn't do that thing. If I do it this way, it'll make it less defined on the edge. If I've got like a fairly sharp line, like you see how this is not very like blurred or faded in the background, because it's fairly sharp, I'm going to bring it this way a little bit on the shift edge. And then fade edge, if I bring it this way, fades less. This way fades more. It's in the middle, it's at 50. I usually bring it up just a little bit. So there's a little bit of a fade there. You can brighten it or darken it if you want. I do think I want this one a little bit brighter. You can also change the temperature on it somewhat. And again, I think, oh shoot. Okay, hold on. Let me undo that. I tried to put it back at 0 and then pushed enter and it just entered out of this. So it's already got the sky. So it just like pulls up the most recent one that's been used. So I'm going to pull this one up for this one. Brightness, I'm going to pull up a little. Temperature, I'm going to pull up a little. And then the foreground lighting, I can either bring it down, and this really affects like kind of your horizon line. I like this one to be up fairly high-ish. I don't know, somewhere in there. And then the edge lighting kind of does the opposite. So this affects like kind of all the way around. And then the edge lighting is very specific to like right at the edge. Typically I've got this one fairly high, this one fairly low. And then the color adjustment, we'll do overall color and I'll keep it, usually about where it's at. Okay, then I'm going to push OK. Then it makes all these layer masks. So if I like hide the sky replacement grouping, I can't see it. But I'm going to click on the colored sky, the actual sky overlay. And I'm going to come, so you can't see this, but I'm clicking on the filter drop down menu, going to blur, and then going to Gaussian blur. And then I'm just trying to match that blur to the background. So I feel like this is about a good spot. If I go too high, it's really not looking realistic at all. And if it's too low, it's too sharp. So I just try to match it to the furthest away point. So in this case, I'll probably put it about here. And then still selecting this, I'm going to go to opacity. Lately, for a long time, I was doing about 75%. Lately, I've been doing it at like 50%. I don't want it to be too overwhelming. I want it to look natural. But I do think something like this is dramatic enough. You could probably go a little higher. So there's that. And then I do have some sky overlays or some sunflower overlays. And I'm just going to grab one of those. It's just saved on my desktop. And you probably know how to use these. So I'm just closing that folder so I can see it. But if I click on background and then I bring this overlay in and drag it onto my image, just push OK. And then I'm going to anchor that back up there at the top so I can find it again if I need it. Then I'm going to put this layer on top of everything else. And then in order to like blend, so the blend mode that I want to use is, right now it's just on normal. Screen is the best one when you're doing something like this. So I'm going to click on screen, then it gets rid of that black background. I'm going to put it right there where there's already the sun rays from the original. I can still adjust the size if I want to or whatever for that. So that is what I would do. They do export back to Photoshop or back to Lightroom better if you flatten it, which I know is like typically like a Photoshop no-no, but to flatten it, you click Control, Shift, and E and that'll flatten everything. And then Control Shift and S is saving it. It's save as, and I'm just going to save it to the folder that I'm editing from in, oh, I was looking for the mom's first name. Her name's Taylor, but their last name's Hanson, so that's the folder I'm looking for. Name it, so this is the folder that's open in Lightroom right now. If I save it to there, then it will automatically pull up in Lightroom. Let me show you. This is the one we did the other night, but here's our new edit. And then you can continue to edit it here if you want to. So like I can increase my contrast here if I want, maybe add in some black, pull back some shadows. I could even like go so far as to like reselect my subjects if I wanted to brighten them even more now at this point or whatever. So here's even like the photoshopped version, and then just those couple of little edits that I just did. So there's that. And then I think we just kind of covered my basic edit. So I'll do that for you really fast while we're here. And then you should be good to go. I think you'll have like all the tools to do all the different lighting situations that we shot in. Okay, so I'm going to just brighten them up a little. Just watching skin, getting the skin to the brightness approximately where I want it, even though I'm going to be adjusting more as we go. Warming that up, bringing up my contrast, bringing my highlights. Because I don't have the sky in this one, I don't bring the highlights down as much, but I will bring them down a little because there is some brightness on their clothing. Shadows up, whites up, blacks down, and then subject select, and same thing. Exposure up, contrast up. I'm going to skip highlights for just a second. Shadows up a little, whites up a little, blacks down. And like a little more. And then I might bring my shadows back down actually, just to give it like the contrast and depth that I want there. And then maybe pull my whites up a little more. That looks pretty good for their skin though. And then select my background. Background, I always want a lot of contrast and a lot of color so that it just looks really magic. So I brought up my, sorry, I should talk you through it. Brought up my dehaze, brought down my shadow, or brought down my blacks, bringing down shadows, bringing up whites a little, bringing up exposure just a smidge. Add quite a bit of contrast to this one, mainly because I'm loving all the shadow that's like in here in the grass, in here, up here, and then all the contrasting color in the background. So I really want to play that up with a lot of contrast. Something like this looks great. Yeah, that looks good. And then I'm going to click on them again, and I'm going to add a little bit more contrast to them so that they match the background well. Good. I could add a little more black in probably to that. Here's like the before and the after. And then if I think we kind of talked, I'm going to add a little bit more dehaze, a little bit more vibrance. But these like mountain sessions where there's so much green, I think we talked about if you want your greens more blue, you pull it this way, more yellow, you pull it this way. This is the hue slider from the HSL ones. So I went to the HSL color tab, and instead of just having one at a time opened, I've got all three opened. And the hue, the H for hue, in green, you can adjust your color of your greens. So if you prefer like a cooler toned green, you pull it to the blue side. If you prefer a warmer toned green, you pull it to the yellow side. If you don't really love greens, like, you know, that's kind of a trend right now, but you can pull that all the way. And then, but because there is so much green, I have been finding myself desaturating my greens just a smidge so that they don't feel quite so in your face. It's not enough to like do like a whole lot. It doesn't feel like I've desaturated anything, but the greens don't feel like they're controlling everything, you know? And then I think I also mentioned to you the other day, but I love the orange luminous cider for their skin. If you watch their skin, when I pull it up, it makes such a pretty difference. It just kind of like brightens the skin up. One other thing, let's do the noise reduction here. And then one more thing, just like a little bonus thing, if you wanted to add a little bit more dimension to this, right here we've got some really good like shadow and things like that, and you really could add another mask and come to the linear gradient and just make a little gradient like right here-ish and just add a little bit of shadow. And all that's going to do is just increase the shadows where that gradient sits. So I'll show you if I like increase the blacks, you can really see what it's doing. But you can do it as subtle or non-subtle as you want. But adding like a darkness there as well as the darkness in the background really like naturally draws the eye to your subject. So sometimes I'll do like something like that if I want to add just a little extra pop. But there's the before and the after. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful. Feel free to reach out if you have any like other questions or anything like as you're editing or want to like walk through anything or whatever. Yeah, reach out and I will talk to you later. See ya.